All right, we're on.
Hey.
Okay. All right. Okay. Hi everybody. Welcome to Fellowship of the Golden Age, and we've taken a sabbatical for a year. From my perspective, I wanted to just take some time to just stop and reset and let go of the way I was living my life before, the way I was playing it out, Um, and I didn't know that I would return or anything, but just the impetus, the impulse to start a new series, it came through loud and strong not so long ago, and and the person who just I don't know, just popped into my head like let's invite Dylan to start it off. And so, Dylan, I just want to say I'm feel really blessed to be sitting here and be present with you, right here, right now. And I'm looking forward to however we flow together.
Well, I'm very feeling very fortunate to be here. Thank you for having me as your first return guest. As a fellow podcaster myself, I know that that's a very important decision, so I appreciate it. I'm very happy to be here and excited to see what we get into.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. Even I don't know what's going to happen. So, anyway, um, and so the theme for this series is it's about being the Christ,
Hmm.
and the reason why I felt to sort of bring this theme through was because all the people who I'm going to be interviewing, we're all students of Ascended Masters through the dispensation through Kim Michaels. And what we're learning about, what we're learning about, it's all about, using the Christ mind to raise our consciousness and, coming to a higher understanding of what Christhood is and everything. And so I think there's sort of like, a whole bunch of things we need to sort of just start pulling apart at first. So Dylan, would you share with us like, who are the Ascended Masters to you? And it'd be lovely if you can sort of tell us your story of
Hmm.
like how you came across them, and particularly this dispensation. So,
Yeah, well, of course. It's funny because I found the Ascended Masters, or I should say, the Ascended Masters found me when I was 13 or 14.
wow.
My mom was really into Wayne Dyer and different personal development teachers and that sort of thing. And I'd be in the car with her on driving along, and he kept mentioning these things called the I am discourses, and this person called Saint Germain. And I never really paid it much attention, for a few years. He was sort of constantly in the background. She had this really strong connection with his teachings, and but the I am discourses always sort of like stood out to me. And eventually, we got a family computer, and we got a little bit better internet than dial-up, so it was actually relevant to search the web. And I got this intuitive impulse to search the I am discourses because I had heard him talking so much about it, and so I got the books, and it threw me into a new world. It was it was a special time. I grew up in a very small town in the middle of the United States called Kansas, Paola, Kansas, and that's a town of 5,000 people, very rural. There's a very
That's just
there's
nearby Oz, isn't
yeah.
it?
Actually, the town right over is Osawatomie, and so we would
Uh,
call it Oz. So, but yeah, no, it's it was not the best place to grow up. It's a
well,
very slow moving town with a very low collective consciousness, and so I was my entire life I felt like the odd one out, and my parents for some reason even decided to put me in a Catholic school, even though I wasn't Catholic. And if you've ever been to the Midwest in that sort of environment, you can imagine what a atheist child in a Catholic school would do to their psychology. It was
mm,
the I was told many times that I was going to hell at like 6 years old because I wasn't a Catholic, and it was an interesting situation. But so I kind of, through my development before I found the teachings, I struggled with a lot of depression because I was surrounded with, my dad was an atheist. My mom was sort of like open to things, but she wasn't religious or really spiritual with an ideology behind it. So I sort of just figured I was an atheist and there was nothing beyond the material world. But I was depressed. And when I found the I Am discourses, it opened up an entirely new universe. I felt like the universe had opened up to me, and I found a
Mm,
new world, and I felt like I was home. And I
mm,
had my best friend at the time, and I was trying to convince him to read them, and I was telling him about all these things I was reading, and he was just like, I think this is fake. I don't, this is crazy. I don't know what these are. And I knew because like, as soon as I started reading, I just felt this burst of love from my heart chakra, and it opened up a lot of spiritual experiences for me at the time. And so the I'm discourses became my Bible, basically. I read them time and time and time again, and would just fall asleep to just envisioning myself enraptured with the light of the masters. And so,
You know what?
if you've ever
You know
read
what,
those,
Dylan? I just
yeah,
you're just reminding me for a moment. Like I do recall, like I was given, I think it was back in about 2000, a healer. She just gave me these two foolscap pages, which it was from the I Am discourses, but I didn't know where it was from. To me, it was just
hmm,
like these two random pieces of paper, and I remember it saying "I am" up the top. I am something. I can't recall what it was, but and those two pieces of paper, those two discourses that I had were like gold. They followed me,
yeah,
until they were tattered
yeah,
because that's all I had. Like
yeah,
the
yeah.
connection until this dispensation not so long ago. So yeah.
Yeah, no, and it's funny when you read it, it like the vibration jumps out of the pages, for me
Mhm,
at least. It's
mhm,
insane. But it's also like it was at a very different time within the collective consciousness. So what I did is, as we all do, is this sort of became, the more I studied, the more that it became solidified. Like my belief system. And so shortly after I had connected, I don't know how long after I read the I Am discourses, but it was sometime. I was searching Ascended Masters, and then all of a sudden, Ascended Master Answers came up, and I was like, oh, there's more of this stuff out there. And then I went to, I found out there was something called the Summit Lighthouse, and so I had all these teachings from Kim, from Summit, from the I Am discourses, and I just, for years, I just 8 hours a day, I was just reading, invoking.
wow.
It was my, and through high school, I was homeschooled, so I spent 5 times more time doing this than I did any of my schooling. It became an all encompassing to me. Um, and yeah, it's been a journey. It's interesting because you go through so many phases on your path, and it's funny because at the beginning, I'd say after the first couple of years, after you learn a lot, you think that you really have it figured out. You think you're really special. You think you have, at least I did. I thought I was really special to find the teachings so young. I thought I knew, I'd read all these teachings, and that's, I was surely like just unlocking Buddhahood or something. And it's funny because the further along I go, the more I realize how much I don't know. And so it's been a journey, but yeah, sorry, I'm talking for a very long time. I'm not giving much
Oh, do
rambling here.
do flow. So, okay. So you've given
Yeah,
us sort of the background and everything,
yeah,
and now, like, share with us, like, your experience of the masters personally. Like, who are they,
yeah.
and
Right,
what are they, and why are they, and how, all of
right.
that.
Okay, so this is where I was actually going to begin with, and I forgot how it was going to lead together. So thank you for reminding me because
Uh,
in the beginning I felt the masters so closely, and based upon all the teachings, I sort of created this image of what the masters were, right? And for me, I heard the descriptions of what the masters are like, like El Moria or Master Moore, he's very strict and very disciplinarian, and he wants me to behave in a certain way. And I had these very sort of rigid ideas of what all these masters were. I would still feel their presence, but I was superimposing what I learned from the teachings onto these beings, onto these presences.
Mm-hmm.
It must have been a couple of years ago, I started to shift out of it because I started realizing that there was this clear separation between what I was experiencing and what I was being told.
Mm-hmm.
Because it was like, based upon all these teachings, there was this image that I was supposed to have formed about the masters. It's like, and even these interpretations, it's like the ego starts to like almost trick you into interpreting like this sentence is like, oh, if I do this, I'm being judged, or like I'm, this, or like. So for me, it's like the past few years have been letting go of my mental images of what the masters are, and really distilling it down to what I experience. Like, what are my experiences of the masters and of God? And for me, it's unconditionality.
Mm-hmm.
It's beautiful expansion. It's you could say unconditional love, but it doesn't do its justice.
Mm-hmm.
Right? So it's like, for me, the masters are these, obviously they're these beautiful beings, but I just experience them all so differently. And so it's hard to kind of encapsulate it in words, what they are to me. But it's really, I've gone through this shift from like me projecting onto the masters what they are to like me being open to experiencing the presence. And so I don't know, for where I'm at right now, the way I experience the masters is I experience this uplifting presence. I get an intuitive sense of which master it is, and then it's usually always associated with something in my psychology to heal. It's like an insight.
Mm-hmm.
There's like this instant insight, and it flows. It's not something that's effort based, and then it's just this beautiful experience of just peace. I used to go chasing it, but now it sort of just happens when it's meant to. And I try not to overthink it too much. But I don't know if that even answers your question.
No, yeah, it does. Yeah. It does. And do you often wonder, like, whether, which came first, the chicken or the egg? Like,
Mm,
whether, how we call on a master to help us with something, but often I feel like, oh, it was the master who sort of helped to, give us this little nudge, like, hey, there's something going on in your psychology there. And, then
mm,
you happen to follow through working with that master. And sometimes also, I know this is like two things almost, but sometimes, like, I'm just not even aware of which master I'm working with anyway. Like, I just know
mhm.
I am. So yeah,
Yeah, yeah, same. I'm not
yeah,
really. I don't. I do occasionally. It's not something I really focus on. It's not something I'm like, oh, I'm. This is my master. It's like I love all of them so uniquely, each
yeah,
one of
yeah.
them, and so it's like I could never choose. It's like choosing between your favorite ice cream flavors. It's just hard because each one's so unique. And so I felt like last year, ironically, because it was supposed to be the year of like the first ray, I
Yes.
felt this really strong connection with Master Moore. Um,
Mm,
and the year before that, I felt a really strong connection with Jesus. And it
mm,
just changes. It's nothing too rigid for me. Sometimes I'll just be like Guan Yin. I feel like sometimes I'll just get overwhelmed with like love from Kuan Yin, and it's like,
mm.
so yeah, there's some that I feel more connected to in general, but yeah, no, it's, I kind of stopped trying. Like I used to be so attached to feeling like having spiritual experiences and thinking that it made me advanced. But now I just kind of, when it comes, it comes. Because the more I try, the less I receive it. So
Yeah.
you know,
And in those sort of spontaneous sort of moments, like, do you have a particular go-to? You know how like there's that quick fire, like, you just there's, one particular master that's the immediate go-to.
no, not really,
Okay.
to be honest. It's just it usually happens. I'll be reading. Like I have this ritual in the morning. I wake up, I grab a little bit of caffeine to pep me up, and then I'll read a dictation or something.
It's
And
exactly me too. Yeah, yeah.
yeah,
Try
yeah, yeah,
that.
yeah, yeah. And so sometimes I'll get the impulse from, and like sometimes I just feel overwhelmed, and I just sit there for a bit and just have to stop reading, and I get the intuitive sense that which master it is. Usually it's the one I'm reading, but other times it's not. So it just depends. It just really depends, you know?
Yeah.
There's no rules around this stuff, at least not,
Yeah.
you know, I'm sort of been in this phase where I'm like letting go of the rules. You know, I'm sort of like just like clearing away the mental debris and just trying to become more innocent, you know?
Mm.
And being curious, being more curious about life, being more
Yeah.
curious about the ascended masters. I think it's so common for us to, because the ego craves certainty, right? So, you know, we can kind of create this box and it makes us feel secure, whether it's the teachings or our view of life. And I've kind of been in this phase where I'm like breaking down those walls and like becoming more curious about life, and even like having certain experiences that like I never would have thought I would have done before. And it's like
Mhm.
it's almost been like this challenging my own ego by doing things that I'm like, oh, I'm never going to do that. I'm not going to, even stupid stuff like, oh, I don't eat steak. And it's like, to hell you do. And then all of a sudden I start eating steak, you know, and it's like even just like little things like breaking down sort of my old identity in a sense. But yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Um, yeah. Yeah. It's kind of funny, like, I just happened to read, a question and answer, and it seemed like a silly question, like asking, "What do the masters do for relaxation and rest?" And the answer, I think it was Saint Germain, said, "We're ready to serve you." Like, you know what I mean? Like, that's
Mm-hmm.
our rest and relaxation, like,
Yeah.
that's and I just went, and from that, I just got so much, like, in the just that sense of, like, how much they love us, and also
Mm-hmm.
that no matter where you are, no matter any time, no matter anything, the masters are
Yeah.
there. Like, if you call,
Mm-hmm.
they are there. Like, you don't have to wait
Mm-hmm.
for a book, you don't have to wait for a teaching to come. Like, they're 24/7. Like,
Oh yeah, for sure. Sometimes I don't know if you've ever noticed this, because it's like um there's phases where it's like sometimes you need to like be deep in the teachings and it helps you. And then other times I find that when I'm really deep in the teachings, I'm doing it from the outer mind, it's actually hurting me. And I
yeah,
actually need to take a
mm,
step back. And then I start receiving more insights after I've taken a step back.
yeah,
I don't know if you've
yeah.
experienced the same thing.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah. Like, the psychology comes up, and, and
Hmm.
I do the exercises to sort of, try to uncover, and, I get a certain amount, and then it's like, I just cut the ties to it. It's just like, I
Hmm.
just know it's just going to pop through when I least expect it, and
Yeah.
it could be tomorrow, or it could be in a week, it could be
Yeah.
in a month. I don't know. All I know is it does happen a lot faster the more committed, the further
Hmm.
you move along the path, like, and if you're
Yeah.
totally devoted, like, the process is faster now.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah,
Have you felt an I don't know if the listeners are aware of like this 12-year cycle that we're in.
yeah.
Um,
Well,
have
yeah,
you felt an
why don't you just sort of give an quick
Yeah.
overview first?
So last January, we Kim Michaels had his New Year webinar, and the Ascended Masters basically it was such a I was crying when Gabriel did that dictation about the 12-year cycle, and they basically said that
Mm.
from 2025 to 2032, 36,
I'm not
it's
very good at maths, so yeah, don't make me laugh.
neither am I. So, anyways, from 2025 to 12 years on, there's basically this incredible cycle where so much light is being released on planet Earth to basically accelerate the consciousness of mankind. And at the end of that 12-year cycle, if the Earth inhabitants respond to it, then at the end of that, we will be in the very beginning kind of stages of the golden age. And there will really be this solidified, this upward spiral. And so that was such an impactful moment for me. And it almost sort of gave me permission to take the next step in my divine plan. And literally, I kid you not, Neptune, from that day of that conference, my life has taken an entirely new turn. It has accelerated a tenfold beyond
Mm,
anything I've ever experienced. And I
yeah,
latched onto that after that, and I just embraced it 100%. Like, and one
yeah,
of the things they said was like, the possibility of this happening, this 12-year cycle, it was not a given before you came into embodiment. But even the possibility made it worth it for you to want to come into embodiment at this time.
Yeah.
And that was
Yeah.
just so powerful for me.
Yeah. Well, you know what? So, I was incredibly moved and inspired and astounded by that particular release, when the masters told us about it. And I think what struck me as really, really unique is like the masters generally don't do like, prophecies or anything like that. So that's why it was kind of like, where is this coming
Hmm.
from? You know what I mean? Like they're not
Hmm.
fortune tellers. Like and so
Hmm.
it was very, very different, and they prepared us for like, some tough stuff is likely to happen, some very shocking
Hmm.
things, like, and we're not saying it is going to happen, but so we were really well forewarned of the,
Yeah.
just be prepared. It was, and I saw it all coming from love. And for me too, like, my, within a couple of weeks of that, my whole life, like a tree came crashing down on my bus and everything, you know, it was radical, the
Mm.
change and the shift in life, and, like, experiencing a life-threatening, experience and everything, but, it was I just went with it, because they kept saying, like, "There's this wave, and just ride that wave,"
Hmm.
and I feel like so with each year, I'll add a bit to what Dylan's saying, is that each year is a release of a different ray of energy. And so last year was the ray of power, and this year it's wisdom. And so I've just felt like, and the power year was like really, really, it was like all
Mm.
steam ahead. It was so full bore, like, in the chaos in the world. And it's just almost like it's almost like, I don't know, there's just a shift in the energy this year. Like, I'm not
Hmm.
gonna say it's slowed down, but it's different, and it feels easier to sort of calibrate a bit more. And you
Yeah.
feel like everybody's calibrating a bit more, like, people who are
Yeah,
unaware of all of this too.
for sure. Yeah. You
Yeah.
know what I realized? I went through a really, really, really difficult period of time for like the 4 or 5 years before this 12-year cycle started. And
Mhm.
so I've noticed like a lot of people have had a really hard time. I have felt like the past year and a half has been the most incredible time of my life, but it's also
Yeah.
I've had reactions to the things happening globally, but my own personal life has been really, really incredible. So it's kind of been this weird it's been this duality of like on the one hand I'm so grateful and there's all this expansion in my personal life. On the other hand, I have
Mm.
these really strong reactions to what's happening in the outside world.
Yep.
And there's
Yep.
almost this fear of like of this fear of loss. It's like this fear of like something really bad happening in my life because are things going too well, all these things. And it's like I've learned to sort of I'm kind of coming to this place of surrender where it's like
Mm.
the natural flow of your life is going to happen. And so it's almost like this surrender to the flow of just like if something horrible happens or this really strong challenge happens, I'm going to flow with it. If things
Mm.
continue to flow in this upward spiral, I'm going to flow with it. And it's like I'm trying to lock into the positive vision of the golden age.
Mm.
The masters talked about this again and again and again because they were warning us, the next 12 years are going to be tough for some people. But if you ride the wave, if you lock into this positive upward momentum, the next 12 years won't feel like a burden at all. In
Yeah.
fact, the next 12 years will feel like an acceleration, a great joy. And so I re listened to that dictation where they said that probably a dozen times because I kept having to remind myself whenever I'd start to go into a negative frame of mind about Donald Trump or about all these things that are happening,
Mm.
I would just remind myself, lock into the upward spiral.
Yep.
It's like, I almost think about it as like, when the internet happened. It's like there were people who resisted the change and there were people who embraced the change. And those who embraced the change, maybe they started a business, maybe they went into that field, maybe they, used it somehow and like accelerated their life. Whereas those who resisted it fell behind. Right. And so it's like during this time of this expansion, there's so much opportunity and there's going to be less people who accept it. but those people who accept it are going to be the forebearers of this
Mhm.
growth, and their own personal life is going to expand, and they're going to start being the example to spread that light, spread that positivity, spread that upward momentum to more people. And by the end of the 12 years, hopefully, we're past that critical initiation phase where we can really start to move into the golden age. But that's it's been a crazy 2 year or year and a half, year and a few couple, not even a year and a half. It's been a year, right?
Yeah.
A year. I said 2 years. It's been a year. My goodness, it
And
feels like two
we're
years.
only
But
just getting started on this year,
oh
like,
my
wow.
Lanta, I know. But yeah, no, it's fun. It's a really cool challenge,
Mm,
and I think that yeah, I hope that more spiritual people really dive into it and really
yeah.
take full advantage of it.
I feel like they are. I feel like there's, people who are not even aware of Ascended Masters, and we know the way it works anyway. You don't have
Hmm.
to know them personally or anything, but I just, I see so many people stepping into like a higher expression of self and everything. And when you said, like, it was challenging, all of this stuff is really challenging. And the way I see it, it's like, well, it's giving us this incredible opportunity to, like, with each slap on the face, and it's within, we experience that sense of suffering with what's happening on the outside or personally or whatever. Um, but it's giving us this opportunity to like rapidly heal our psychology,
Hmm.
and that really
Hmm.
comes down to, like, we can probably start thinking a little bit now about, that's the basis of what the Christ mind is there for, which is to help us to reach up for a
Hmm.
higher truth and to take another step up in consciousness. So this wave of energy is just giving us this opportunity, like, it's lifting us up to the Christ, like, that's our natural movement, is up and everything. So we've got to go
Hmm.
down into that and see that darkness, and it's playing out everywhere, but
Yeah.
that light is lifting us up. So I wouldn't mind hearing, your reflections on that, Dylan.
Yeah, on the light for for this cycle, like the light, how it
Mhm.
feels.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, and what and how that Christ mind, how we
the
access
Christ
that
mind.
Christ mind to lift us up. And
Yeah, it's so interesting because, like I said before, I spent years building up this sense of self that was spiritual, and I've
mm,
spent the last couple of years tearing it down. And Kim Michaels said something that was really impactful for me. He said that he went through this stage where his the motto that he constantly repeated to himself was, "It's not about me." And what I've realized is that the more that I start to live by that, the more acceleration and growth and joy that I experience in my life. So it's not like, I still have a lot of unresolved psychology I haven't worked out. I'm working on it. But it's like reading a book has not been helping me resolve that psychology. It's like going into the world and interacting with people and going beyond myself, serving, giving. That is what gives me this spontaneous insight that just shifts me out of a certain state of mind. And so for me, being the Christ, it's not this destination that I'm reaching for, because I'm always going to be growing. It's 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 like no matter where you are, you can express the Christ at a certain level. The Christ is this upward force that seeks to unify creation with creator, right? And so the Christ isn't a static state. The Christ is this unifying force. So no matter where you are in consciousness, when you're expressing that unifying force, when you're in communion with that, you're the Christ. You're not the fullness of the Christ, but nobody's the fullness of the Christ, because the Christ is universal. It's infinite, you know? And so um it, it's funny. Like I said earlier, I'm becoming more childlike and more curious, right? And it's funny because I there's this show, okay? There's this show on Apple TV called Ted Lasso. Okay, I
yeah, I
don't know if
love
you've
that
ever
one. Yeah,
watched it.
yeah, yeah,
Oh my god,
yeah.
love it. But he said, "Don't be judgmental, be curious." And I heard that a couple of years ago, and it's funny because it seems very mundane, but it really shifted my mindset. And so I've been so focused on being innocent, being curious, being less judgmental towards towards the expectations that I'm holding for life, and just receiving life as it comes to me, and seeking to um, express that Christ light in every situation. And I'm certainly not perfect. I'm certainly not perfect. I have many moments in the day where I'm not connected to that. Um, but it's like I'm just finding more fulfillment in the little things. And I'm sort of kind of starting to enjoy being on earth for the first time
Yeah.
in a lot of embodiments. And so um, I'm also becoming less sophisticated.
Yeah.
I used to have a lot of arguments in my mind. I used to be very intellectual. I used to have all these teachings. I used to be able to recite million and one reasons why I'm right about a million and one things. Um, and now I'm just sort of, yeah, dismantling all of that. And I'm becoming more free. And it's funny because you get glimpses of a higher state of consciousness sometimes. And I get these glimpses and I'm just like, oh my gosh, I had it all wrong. It's part of the journey, but it's like, it's so simple. It's so simple. Like, I don't know if you ever experienced that. The
Mm.
Christ mind, and in that, it's so simple. Life is so
Yeah.
simple and pure,
Yeah.
and we overcomplicate it constantly.
Yeah, I know, and that's exactly what I began, like, the biggest turning point for me over last year. One of the reasons why I stopped these videos and a tree fell on my bus was to see how I'd built up, this spiritual self, what I
Mm,
believe, Christ is, or what I believe a spiritual person is. And the masters constantly keep telling us about this spiritual self, and we're meant to build it. We're meant to build up this, very strong self. And but
mhm,
there just come this there's this turning point where we've got to drop it, begin
mhm,
dropping all of those elements, because there's nothing ultimate. And what I'm finding, like, since, and I finally was able to sort of see it and just go, just let it go, and just step beyond this now. And that there's no longer that weight of expectation of what I should or I shouldn't be, or what a spiritual
mhm,
person is or is not, or that people are right or wrong. Like, it's just not there anymore. All that's
mhm,
there is just, this desire to just raise my own consciousness, but also
mhm,
keep striving to reach out and to, see what blocks me from being able to offer to help raise other people's consciousness. It's
mhm,
yeah. Yeah, and that's where we need this Christ mind, because we can't solve all of this, up here. And and also, yeah, I think I just sort of skipped over that, but also, for me, like, it's coming back to that simplicity, like the
mhm,
change that I've, felt over that past year was just like, I just want to be normal. Like, I don't actually want to
mhm,
be anything special. Like, I just want to be a normal person in the community, do normal things, and just meet normal people and just have normal conversations. And, just, I know things just pop out, or, just my presence is there, and I'm not even aware of what's going on. But, I just happen to sort of give a bit of an insight, but it's not coming from, like, I know more than that person. And sometimes that insight comes, from somebody else. And I'm enjoying, like, yeah, that simplicity, and not sort
mhm.
of just trying to be some built up image of, you know,
Exactly.
yeah, what the Christ is.
Yeah.
Yeah. So,
Yeah.
Dylan, like, I think, I think it's worth sort of thinking about, like, Jesus was, the classic example of, what we perceive, the Christ as and is. And I wouldn't mind, if you could sort of do your bit to sort of help dispel the image that Christianity has built up around Jesus. Like,
Mhm.
how would you
Sure.
approach that?
Let me open the window real quick. I'm sweating like you
Yeah,
wouldn't believe. It's a sauna in here. The
yeah, yeah.
the sun is beaming in. It's actually funny because even when I was in the teachings for many years, I did create a really strong image of Jesus. Um, and one of the things that really helped me get past it was actually listening to near death experiences.
Mhm.
I swear, every near death experience I listen to that's valid, um, I I'm crying because it like reminds me, unlocks the memories of my own experiences between embodiments, and whenever I'm going through a phase of like where I'm not feeling as connected, I know I just listen to a few near death experiences, and my God, I'm just bawling my eyes out, feeling that connection. But it's funny because in some of the near death experiences, they talk about meeting Jesus, and the experience they have with him of just this pure, unconditional love. And you know, for me, I when I first started, I wanted nothing to do with Jesus because I grew up in the Midwest, in a very, very Christian area, and I went to a Catholic school against my will for many years. And the Jesus that they portrayed was it was just it never made any sense to me. I always felt like there was more to life, and I wasn't getting it there. And so it's like, if you were exposed to an image of Jesus projected by the Catholic Church or by traditional Christianity, um, I would highly suggest that you read the actual Bible and read the actual passages from what Jesus has said, because there's a big difference between what he said and the interpretation that you've been force fed in this lifetime and in many previous lifetimes. Because there's this idolatry and there's this story, this interpretation around Jesus's life that has no actual re- real representation in fact, based upon what we have as historical or written evidence. And so I think the first step to connecting with the real Jesus is letting go of the dead Jesus that you've been tricked into believing in, or you've been conditioned to know. And so, for many years, when I was on the path with the masters, I resisted Jesus. I really didn't want anything to do with him.
Mm.
Um, I remember one time I was doing an invocation to Jesus after listening to one of his dictations, and I was just overcome with this unconditional love. And I always was perceived Jesus as very judgmental and very kind of strict, and it's not because that's sort of the image projected upon him by God, by the Catholic Church. And when I had that experience, it really shifted something for me. But at the same time, I didn't fully let go of the angry and judgmental Jesus in my mind for a few more years, because I would listen to Kim's dictations, and Kim can have a pretty forceful voice sometimes. He's not super soft. He doesn't have a very soothing voice at times. And so I would still superimpose my interpretation of Jesus from his dictations. So sometimes Jesus was more forceful in the dictations or more intense, and so I would still perceive that as this angry and judgmental Jesus.
Mhm.
And I would have more internal experiences of Jesus, of this unconditional love, this beautiful, beautiful soul presence. And I finally just had to sit down with myself and ask myself, like, which Jesus am I going to believe in? The one I've experienced, or the one that I'm being told about?
Yeah,
And
yeah,
I made the decision to believe in the Jesus that I actually experience, the
yeah.
love, the unconditional love. And so then I let that die, that old Jesus die in my
Mm.
own mind. And obviously then, Kim's dictations took on a different form for me. I perceived it in a different way.
Yeah, yeah,
Um, but it's like you almost have to kill. It's like if you see the Buddha on the street, kill him, right?
yeah.
It's like, you don't, not literally, but it's we've all kind of created this image of Jesus in our minds, and we have to kill that Jesus in order to experience the real one. We have to let
Yeah.
that Jesus die, because especially for those of us that grew up in a very religious atmosphere, it's always in the back of your mind.
Mm.
And oftentimes, what we don't realize is that the image we impose upon Jesus is actually the voice of our parents, the
Yeah.
voices of the authority figures in our lives. And that becomes our own internal dialogue. And
Yeah.
so then to give that internal dialogue ultimate authority, we project, oh, well, this is Jesus or this is God in my mind that's judging me. And it's all just an illusion, you know.
Mm. Yeah. You
I'm
know,
I'm I'm rambling once again, but
no, it's all beautiful. I want you to ramble. It's um you're just you know, like Jesus is all of that, isn't he? And but the thing is, Jesus also does have that, he can be, it can seem like it's rather stern and direct, like flipping over the tables sort of stuff. Like he's not afraid of
mhm,
like going in. And I remember the turning point for me last year was actually a dictation, a teaching from Jesus, and it was given in the Holland conference, and I think that was about
mhm,
your divine plan. And it was really going for the jugular of the ego. Like, he was just
mhm.
going straight, like, so what? It's all about, me, me, me. And he was really full on. And I was there just going, oh, like quaking with like
Really?
this. Yeah, because
Mhm.
I was deeply attached to this
Yeah,
spiritual self. But, I just knew that like it left me really severely, like quite traumatized after the dictation, so much so
really?
that
Okay.
yeah, I believed it wasn't Jesus. I just was like, nah, that's an imposter, like,
Mm.
just dismiss that. And it took me a month to really come down and everything. And in retrospect, I look back like that was my turning point. Like it was when
Yep,
you just said that, you see the Buddha
yeah.
in the street, kill him. And that's what Jesus was doing. Like that is so
Yeah,
loving. Like, to not be afraid.
yeah,
Like he's not attached to any sort of image that I'm going to paint of him. He's not afraid of that to go in and
yeah,
just, challenge not necessarily just my ego, but anyone's ego. Like, are you prepared?
yeah,
And yeah, and it's another layer of love, like, that you can sort of
yeah,
directly challenge something instead of just going, yeah, it's all good.
yeah. Well, it's funny because I made the decision 5 years ago. It was during the COVID pandemic, and I was really against all the lockdowns, and I kind
Mm.
of went all of a sudden conservative, like this really conservative streak, and I was like very negative and like anti this and anti that. I deleted all these people off my Facebook, and um, there was this conference that we had, and the master spoke very forcefully about that mindset that I was out picturing. And I had this experience in the shift where I spontaneously shifted out of it. And I realized how trapped I had made myself. And
Mhm.
actually, around that time, my old business started falling, our life started falling apart. My wife and I both sort of got into this mindset. Our life started falling apart through it. Um, and I made the decision, and I realized how wrong I had been and how liberated I felt once I shifted my mindset. And I made the decision that I was never going to be afraid of being wrong ever again. I realized that being wrong is the best thing. Realizing you're wrong is the best thing you could ever have,
Yeah.
because
Mm.
you're literally realizing where you are limiting yourself. You're literally seeing through an illusion. It
Yeah.
was it was so and even it was so liberating. And even like in moments in my relationship where you would get triggered, I just started, oh, I was wrong. I'm sorry. And I noticed how many times in my daily life my ego wanted to be right. And from
Mm.
that decision, I stopped being offended at any ascended master dictation I've ever listened to. I never
Mm.
have the experience. I Since that time, I have not had the experience of being offended or triggered at a dictation once.
Mhm.
It's like I'll listen to it and I'm like, oh yeah, that's relevant, great,
Mm.
and
Mm.
that's my reaction. And so that's been probably one of the most significant turning points on my path, is
Yeah.
actually having a positive relationship with being wrong.
Yeah. And it's kind of interesting that you say it's around that was must have been around that 2020 sort of time
Yep.
when it was all
Yep.
COVID. And I know that that was another a key turning point where I think a lot of people were challenged, because I know there was a lot of people who suddenly went, "Oh, Kim has lost his mantle. He's no longer the messenger," because they could not handle those challenges regarding
Hmm.
Trump and the COVID stuff. It was
Yep.
too much, and so yeah, and it's okay to be wrong. You're right.
Yeah.
Like that's the thing.
Yeah.
Like anyone who left the teachings, it doesn't matter, because like there just comes a moment. Like for me last year, it was like it's okay. I was wrong. I was wrong. I'd rather,
Yeah.
because the moment you just sort of accept that, you're actually just dropping straight into your heart. And it's just like
Exactly.
that feels better.
Well, pretty much every problem in the world almost stems from people not wanting to be wrong.
Yeah.
The average person, think about it. You even just a mundane example, someone's afraid to start a business. Why are they afraid to start a business? Even though it's all they want to do for their life, it's because they're afraid of failure. They're afraid of being wrong.
Mhm.
If there's How many instances have you had where someone, there's a family member who's made a mistake, and if they just turned around, they could improve their life or their relationship in a million different ways. They don't want to be wrong, so they refuse to acknowledge that. Look at Donald Trump. His People who support him are still supporting him because they are afraid to be wrong.
Mhm.
Donald Trump, what is he doing? Everything in his psychology is because he's afraid to be wrong. That
Mhm.
is the foundation of the psychology of the fallen beings. That is the foundation of the duality consciousness. If you go to the Adam and Eve story, it's that, what was it? Eve knew that she had eaten of the forbidden fruit, and she hid from God because she didn't
Yeah.
want to be wrong. She was
Yeah.
afraid of being wrong.
Yeah.
And so, in essence, that's like the foundation of the duality consciousness. And that's the foundation of our egos, in a sense. And so, being able to accept being wrong and hold that is so liberating.
Mhm. Mhm.
It's so liberating.
And
And then, and
yeah.
then you will experience the masters as, so I think we have a lag in our video. I'm sorry. And then you'll experience the masters as love. And then it's like, even when someone experiences Jesus challenging them, I'm experiencing it as love. I still feel enraptured in love. And so it's like when people say, "Oh, Master Moore, he's a tough one." I have no idea what they're talking about. I experience him as the sweetest, softest, most beautiful love. That's
Mm.
all I experience. That's all I've ever experienced from him. Ironically, I've experienced more sternness from Jesus than Master Moore. I've never had anything but like just bubbly love from Master Moore. But it's like when you let go of that fear of being wrong, that resistance falls away.
Mhm. Mm. And also, when it comes to experiencing one another, like in the horizontal sort of sense,
Mhm.
in that other people, like, and this is just a key lesson I'm just starting to groove into right now, is that we may express an element of Christhood, express something that comes from our higher self, and other people will respond or react in whatever way. Some may see that Christic expression, some may project that
Mhm.
that's what it is. They're coming through some sort of a separate self. They're coming through a layer of psychology. And what I noticed in myself recently was, someone came through their psychology, but I felt rejected by that. So I thought, oh, was I wrong? Like,
Mm.
or were they wrong? Like, it was all very personal. And I sort of was able to sort of get into it and see, oh, I felt rejected. And and then I worked through it, really sort of intensively for 24 hours, and I was able to come back and see, like,
Mhm.
oh, that person was just coming through imbalanced psychology, and I was able to respond like totally through my heart, like, through the Christ, which is,
Mhm.
all I wanted to do was just to give that person an opportunity to be aware and raise up themselves and everything. And I didn't point the finger at them. There was just love. You know what I mean? It was a very different reaction. Whereas when I was feeling rejected by that person, there was just nothing but tension, like this fear of just protecting myself and,
Yeah.
defending, like, yeah. Um, yeah, yeah. So it
Yeah.
does come down to that, um, yeah, just seeing that, we're going to be wrong plenty of times, but it's the joy is in seeing that, and that's what the Christ is there for us, at the moment we go, I've just I'm on the wrong track here, you just, you ask and then you receive, and the Christ mind will give you an impulse on how to come up higher. And that Christ mind, like, essentially is,
Mhm.
the ascended masters, an ascended master just giving us a higher truth. And could you sort of maybe just
Yeah.
explain, like, why the ascended masters are holding that sort of, like, why they can help us to step out of, um, the incorrect mindset or the duality or whatever it is?
Yeah, well, they're out of the simulation. It's like I have memories of being in between embodiments, and the tremendous we don't realize the weight that we're carrying being an embodiment on a dense planet like Earth. There's so many illusions here. The density of matter, the physical density of matter is so intense that it's very difficult to see through the unresolved psychology and the illusions that we have, the pain, the trauma. We've built up these blankets of energy that cover us. And, even for someone like us who have been on the path for a while, we still have plenty of that within our energy field. And so the value of having the ascended masters is that they've graduated from schoolroom earth. And so they are not subject to the laws and the illusions of this planet. They've risen above it. And so they can be a totally neutral, totally impartial assistance on our path, because they're not like, if you have a human guru, they're still subject to unresolved psychology. They're still subject to the norms in society, their own personal ways that they view life. They're viewing life from a certain perspective. When a being ascends, they no longer have this singular point of consciousness. You have a spherical form. Obviously, I don't experience an ascended consciousness. I'm not there. But from
Mm,
my brief glimpses of just my own spiritual insights, when a being ascends, they have a spherical sense of consciousness. I can't
mm,
really wrap my mind around it, but
mm,
they're able to see the entirety of our energy field, and they can guide us for how we can most efficiently free ourselves from our own limitations. And so
mm,
that's the real benefit. For me, in past lives, I had had many gurus, and I was certainly helped by them. But in this lifetime, I really came in with this longing for something more. I really was longing for that guidance that was beyond the physical, that guidance that was beyond, like, the Indian traditions. You can have a guru who's like, if you one of the books I read that I really loved was Autobiography of a Yogi by
mhm,
Paramahansa Yogananda, and he would talk about his guru Sri Yukteswar, and you know Sri Yukteswar helped him in so many ways grow, but also he had a very human aspect of himself as well. He's very stern. He never said "I love you." He wasn't very warm. He was very disciplinarian and sort of analytical, and he was a master, but he had his own individual expression. The ascended masters are beyond those human idiosyncrasies,
mm,
and so um, I think it's just such a valuable thing that the concept of ascended masters has broken through in the collective consciousness over the past 100 years, because they are an invaluable resource. They're not limited by time and space like humans are. You can have a human master, but he's really limited to a small group of real followers. He can only help a certain amount of people. ascended masters, like I said, are spherical in nature. They're beyond time and space, and so they can work with everybody simultaneously.
Yeah.
And so you can have that deeply personal relationship with them, um, and your next door neighbor can as well. And
Mm.
Neptune can on the other side of the planet, and so that's really the beauty of it. And
And
I
also
believe that.
that their answers, you remember in the most recent conference, and they were saying, like, just step back and trying to sort of comprehend all of this with the outer mind and experience us. And the thing is, these answers and these impulses that help us to come up higher, like, it's not like they tell you what to do or they give you some sort of a physical answer. Like, it's just, it's just experienced in a way. Like, it's not like textbook sort of stuff. It's,
No, yeah, exactly. Yeah,
mm,
and I've realized, here's what I'm starting to realize, Neptune, is that um, I am never going to ascend. I can, like,
there's
I
something in
of my
that.
own self, I of my own self can do nothing.
Yep.
I
Yeah.
I am never going to be enlightened. The
Yep.
I, the
Yep.
I, the human self that I identify myself as in this lifetime, it's not going to ascend. And
Wow.
so, what I'm realizing more and more is, like, there's this beautiful grace that comes to us when we're open. And, like, our job is to be open. Our job isn't to figure it all out. Our job is to be open. And then we're given through grace, through the Christ mind, which is our birthright. We are given the insights that take us higher, you know? And those insights are actually letting go. It's letting go. It's like, if we didn't, we would. It's like a balloon underwater. If you cut the weight from it, it naturally rises to the surface. We
Mm,
don't have to we are never going to learn our way to enlightenment or the ascension. We have to let go of everything. And as we let go, we start to un- uncover the truth of our being. And it's not something we can put into words. It's not something we can write down. It's not something we can ever pinpoint. It's like, there's this Taoist saying that said, life is like water. The more you try to grasp it, the quicker it flows through your finger. Learn to
mm,
cup your hands and hold life, And so I'm learning more and more to just hold life, hold the Christ mind, be the vessel for that. That's what we can be. We can be the vessel for truth, the vessel for light. And that is our greatest fulfillment, because all of the separate selves, they are they're trying to grasp and control a flowing stream, and it's impossible. And the tension we feel is that constant frustration of not being able to stop the flow of the stream. It is an impossible quest. So the quicker that you can let go of that, the quicker you will find peace. And that is what the spiritual path is about. Yes,
mm.
there's lots of intricacies. Yes, you have to work on your psychology. It's not something you just sit there and say, "Oh, everything's great." But, you know, there's phases. There's phases. And for each step on the path, there will be a different approach. And what I know for certain is that where I'm at right now requires me to let go. It's very difficult for me because I like to be in control. My separate selves like to be in control. Um, but the more I let go, the more joy and the more meaning I find in life. And isn't that what we're all looking for? We're all looking for meaning, for wholeness, for purpose, for peace, maybe some bliss in there. That'd be nice. Mix in a little bit of that, sprinkle it in.
Mm,
Um,
mm,
and so, no matter where you are in the path, though, I think that it's really valuable to be kind to yourself, to accept yourself, to cut yourself a little bit of
yeah,
slack,
yeah,
take the
yeah.
pressure off. Self love is so underrated. It's so underrated. If the biggest thing I see with spiritual people and ascended master students is that they're very aware of their tension. A lot of them are very tense,
Mm,
because uh, if you're not on the spiritual path, that you can cover up trauma and tension with an outer self. You can push it down and sort of ignore it. when you're on the path, you can't really do that. And
Yeah.
so, but I think that it's like the reason why there's this tension is partially because there's this goal, there's this place they think they need to be, and they think they're constantly falling short. So there's this tension because they're
Yeah.
not where they expect themselves to be. And so reality is disconnected from their actual from their vision of what it should be. And so they constantly feel this tension. And so what I would hope for any spiritual person, no matter where they are on the path, is to let go of this standard that they project upon themselves and upon life, and can begin to flow with life more easily, and they will be taken higher and higher and higher. But living without that tension is a lot easier than living constantly analyzing and judging, and yeah. So
Mm. Yeah, recognizing that we're on planet Earth and this is a
mhm,
schoolroom and everything we're doing is an experiment. So just be
mhm,
okay with that experiment. If you want to experiment with something that's wrong, like then do it. If you genuinely feel like that's where I've got to go, I've got to just walk into this darkness and play it out to the
mhm,
fullest. Like, but if you I've found like, if you've got that lifeline, like it doesn't go
mhm,
away ever. Like it never ever
mhm,
disappears. Like, if you've got that lifeline, like the moment you wanna go, wait, bit of help here, like, bam, like you can just move straight on out of it. Like just being okay, there's no shouldn't. Like just try. Try this, and
mhm,
that's what
yeah.
the Christ mind is for too. It's there for us to experiment with. How can we experiment with the Christ mind? Like, so it was something I read this morning, which was, you know, we experiment, we express that Christic expression, however it's going to come out. And the evaluation is not whether it was a failure or a success. The evaluation is like, how could I express more of the Christ mind next time? Like, it's sort of a very different perspective
Mhm,
of looking at it. And
yeah.
so, Dylan, I wouldn't mind us hearing about like, because you're a family man and everything, and also a businessman. Well, you've got all many sort of regular roles in life, like we all do. So
Yeah.
how does expressing the Christ through yourself, like, how does that relate to in your different sort of environments in your life? And yeah, reflect on that.
Well, when I was young, there was I had a very strong desire to be an entrepreneur, to do things in the world, to help people, and through my spiritual path, I came to believe that it was wrong for me to do anything here, for me to have any desires, and the more and more spiritual I thought I was, the more and more dead I felt inside. And it was around that 2020 point where I decided I was going to start breaking down these walls, because when I was a child, I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to have a beautiful family. I wanted to, I wanted to give to life. I wanted to help people. And so I actually like ignored that part of myself for years until 2020, when I decided to start tearing it down. And it came in phases, and I had to challenge myself a lot. And what's actually interesting, I wasn't sure if I was going to share this, but it actually goes to what you were saying about doing something that you never would have considered ever, but it was part of like breaking down my spiritual image of myself. I actually did a mushroom journey, and it was during a time, I think 2022, where like my life was extraordinarily stagnant. I was so dead set on this certain way of being, and like I had gone through the Avatar series 5 times in a row, and I just was not getting it. And I finally just had this intuitive insight, like, do this. And I was like, hell no, this goes against everything I believe in. I am a spiritual person. This is epically important that I don't do anything. I don't drink. I don't do anything, nothing. If I do this, I will lose out on my ascension. I'm going to have to like have all this it was all these voices in my head.
I can
And I
imagine.
did it.
Yeah.
I did it. And for the first time, I remembered what it was like to be 5 years old again.
Wow.
And I looked at the blades of grass and the sun shining through it, the little ants making their way to their home. And I just was there in the beautiful simplicity of life. And I saw all my children's faces for the first time without all of the stress and the tension and the fear that had colored my mind so much up until that point. I actually saw them for the first time. And it was the most profound experience. I had probably had more profound experiences through, psychoactively induced, but it was, for that point in my life, it was one of the most profound experiences I've ever had. And it set me on a new track because it gave me this reset. And, and I realized how closed I was. And so from that point, I'm getting to the point here, I promise.
That's how I know this. Yeah.
And I realized how I had suppressed so many things. I had segmented my life so much. And the more spiritual I thought I was becoming, the less spiritual I actually was becoming. I was separating myself from life. I was wasting the opportunities that I had been gifted by God in an attempt to somehow raise myself above the world. And so from that moment, the next day I actually had the idea to start our current business, Ananda Elixirs, which is a functional mushroom soda. So it's actually like a healthy soda replacement because, anyways, long story there. But we started that company. I brought the idea to my wife that day. We had had a previous business that had been successful, and but as soon as we kind of built it to this peak during COVID, it collapsed and we lost everything. And then my wife lost her father to suicide, and she received an inheritance from him. And us, in our misguided intention to do the right thing, invested it in risky things and lost it all. And so we had nothing. And when I had opened myself up to this idea, that's all we had was this one thought, is like, let's try this. And so we started, and day after day, we just took one step in front of the other, and we struggled and we were gritty and we failed time and time again for 2 years until last January, New Year's dictation. I finally decided, I let the New Year's conference and the next 12 years be the permission that I needed to fully put myself out there, to fully accept that change was possible in my life. And so we made shifts, and a couple months down the road, our business just doubled every single month to where now the business is doing millions of dollars, is going to do millions and millions of dollars this year. And we've employed people, and every single action we're taking in our business is from this spiritual perspective of how can we raise all life. And we just did this big event because we were on Dragon's Den here in Canada, which is like this big entrepreneur show. We had hundreds of people at this event, and we were sharing our experiences and our vision for our business. And people were coming up to me so empowered for their life. And they were telling me like, your story of following your bliss, because Ananda is a Sanskrit word for bliss. And so our tagline is follow your bliss. And they said, so we told our story about following our bliss through all this trial and creating this. And they said, like, you're making me reconsider, like, why aren't I following my bliss? Like, what am I doing? What is in my heart that I'm not expressing? And so even the past couple of months, there's been this deeper understanding that spirituality isn't separating myself from the world. It's truly like immersing myself in it and expressing my soul. And by doing that, it helps awaken other people. And
Mm.
so
Mm.
business, family, work, friends, they're not anti-spiritual. They are our mission. It's our purpose. It is by accepting it, by fully giving ourselves into it, not from the human state of consciousness, but our true selves, our true spirit, that we actually we truly find that fulfillment that we've been longing for. It's not out there, it's here because
Yeah.
we're here for a reason. And so I'm discovering that day by day by day right now as we speak. And it's been so transformative. And I don't know what the future holds. Everything could fall apart tomorrow. I have no idea. But I'm
Mm.
curious about what's possible. I'm curious about what's around the river bend, as Pocahontas
Mm.
used to sing. You know? Love that song. But yeah, so it's been a journey. It's been one of my greatest lessons. And I'm so grateful to be where I am today. I'm so grateful.
Yeah. Yeah, I like that sort of way you're expressing that. That in, raising ourselves up, following
Yeah.
whatever it is that's calling us up,
Hmm.
in our divine plan or in however we're being called to express, that's automatically like raising up others and everything. So,
Yeah.
do you consciously go about, seeking to raise up the people that actually work for you, or how does that work? Do you?
Yeah. So let me close the window real quick. It's getting chilly in here. It's like negative 10 Celsius outside. Um, so it's interesting because, I sort of had this division in my being my whole life because on the one hand, I wanted to separate myself from the world and be spiritual. But on the other hand, I had desires. I wanted to travel the world. I wanted to live in a nice house. I wanted to, you know, I like fish tanks. I wanted like a nice reef tank someday. Like I had all these little desires, right?
Yeah, yeah.
Um, And so I always had this division in my being. And it's funny because the past 2 years, it's like I went through this artificial letting go of all that, where I just sort of became numb to it all. I felt dead inside. And the past 2 years, I haven't, I've shifted where I don't resist those things, but I just don't think about them. I don't desire them. I don't want them. And so what I've become is I focus on giving. Like in my business, I'm curious about what's possible. I'm just curious about what's possible. That's my mindset. I don't
Mhm.
have an expectation. I don't have a goal I'm trying to get to. I'm curious about what's possible. And when we bring in people like employees, it's like my my what I ask myself is how can I make this just an incredible experience for them? And
Yeah,
we
well,
every single day, like our employees are like they just text us like I'm just crying in gratitude because I'm so grateful for this. This has changed my life. Like like they've told us like they all tell us like this is like the happiest I've ever been. Like I'm so fulfilled. I'm so
wow.
happy. Like and it's just like I'm like wow. Like this is my divine plan is being an example for how you can run a business that's aligned with higher principles. And it's funny because the past 2 years hasn't been all straight up. Like there's been times where it's been like this, but it's funny
Mm.
because anytime it goes like this, it's because I've become focused on myself. It's because
Yeah.
like last August, like we went from making nothing to like finally making a decent amount of money for the first time in years. And I was like, oh, this feels good. What am I going to buy? What am I going to do? Like, where am I going to go? Like, like I was like so excited, but I was focused on myself. And there
Yeah.
was a dip. And I was for a couple of months, I was really stressed out until I finally let go and just was focused on the process again, focused on giving, focused on
Mm.
curiosity. And then there was this uptick, and then
Mm.
it's just boom, just goes up. And then what I've realized is like what Jesus said. What did Jesus say? He said, "Seek ye first the kingdom of God, and all things will be added unto you." I didn't believe it. It took me experiencing it to actually believe it. And now I experience that everything is being added unto me and I don't need it. I don't need it. If I didn't have it, I wouldn't feel any different. It's just coming. And so then there's this natural humility and this awe that arises, because it's like, well, if you take it all away from me, I'm fine. But I'm just like, how are you so good, God? Like, how are you so generous? How are you so, like, you almost form this intimacy with spirit, because it's like you're just so humbled by the experience. Like, I'm humbled to be the vessel for this business. I'm humbled to be the vessel for my children, for our podcast, for anything that we're doing. I'm humbled by, I feel I'm the vessel for the water. I'm not the water. It's like, and
Yeah.
so you know,
Yeah. Yeah.
yeah,
Yeah. And like what I'm feeling from you, and I know, it's my own experience in life too, is like
mm,
just in everything, like experiencing joy, like, it's just the
yeah,
joy of all of it, be it the business, be it
yeah,
the family, be it, um, playing a game of pickleball or something, like, there's just joy in every single thing, like,
yeah, yeah, totally. And that's the
yeah,
thing. It's like, like even today, I've been on such a roll, but today I felt some limiting energies.
mm,
I didn't sleep well, and like I wasn't feeling it today. I was kind of crabby, and then I knew this podcast was coming up, and I'm like, all right, this is like, I need this right now. I need to give,
yeah,
you know? So I come on this podcast and I'm like, okay, what can I give to the people that are listening? What can I give in this interaction to raise up
yeah,
life? And I feel reborn. I feel
yeah,
it just, all this cloud that was like engulfing me today, it's like in the wind, right?
yeah,
And it's that simple. It's that simple.
yeah, and you wouldn't know it because, yeah, I've just sort of felt so uplifted, just in the experience with you of,
Mm,
talking with you and just flowing together, and you'd never know that, there was a whole dark cloud, for you. And
right.
yeah, same, I woke up insanely early too, but I don't know, it was the same sort of feeling, like I just thought
Yeah.
I felt nothing but just this incredible joy that, wow, we're stepping back into doing these interviews, and, I wonder where it's gonna go, like curiosity, like, there's no particular
Hmm.
preparation, and it's all flowed so easily, so fluidly with you, like, in
Mm,
ways that I didn't prepare and in ways you weren't aware
yeah.
it was gonna happen. But, I feel like, we've demonstrated, and our expression of the Christ today, here and
Yeah.
now.
Yeah. 100%.
Yeah,
So beautiful.
yeah,
I'm so grateful for you having me on. It's such a
yeah.
gift. It's such a gift. And it's like, gosh, I would love for everyone listening to just the day that you're listening, do one thing to serve life beyond yourself
Mhm,
and see what
mhm.
happens. See what happens with no consideration of yourself. Doesn't mean you have to be a martyr. Doesn't mean you have to sacrifice your integrity for other people, but just innocently serving, innocently giving to
Mm.
life. I mean, sometimes it's as simple as seeing a piece of garbage on the road and just like spontaneously picking it up. Like
Yeah.
one of the most uplifting moments I had in recent memory was I was at Costco in the States a couple of years ago, and there was an elderly couple struggling with their groceries, and like I just helped them out, did everything for them, and the gratitude that came from them and the feeling of wholeness that I experienced just from like a super small, super simple act of kindness. I was like, what? And I think like a successful business or millions of dollars in my bank account is going to make me happy. I just did this simple thing and it's the happiest I've ever felt. It's so
Yeah.
simple. Our
Yeah.
egos
Yeah.
are constantly complicating it, right?
Yeah. Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah. So I think, this is like the perfect place for us to just finish off,
yeah.
and, express my gratitude to
Thank
you,
you.
Dylan. Thank you for sharing this space, and, gratitude to the people who have viewed, for listening to this point. Like, thank you for coming on this journey, and, I hope, yeah, you can take a bit of what Dylan has suggested to just think of a way to just, what can you give today? Like,
Mm,
what of yourself can you give? Yeah.
mm. Thank you. Thank you, Neptune.
Okay.
What an
All
honor.
right. Yes, absolutely. Okay.